Who does Erika think killed her husband?
Well, I think that in her recent PR blitz, she sort of communicated that she trusted her team, and her lawyer was using kind of the same rhetoric that the media has been using, where, there's really, this is like, it's overwhelming. Maybe he didn't say the word overwhelming, but he was like, it's very clear, I think is what he said in particular. And then I pushed back and I said, what's clear? The affidavit? That's all you guys have? And I did tell him, if you would never be my lawyer, because it's just, a lawyer that's just kind of giving you adjectives, and I don't need a cheerleader. I need someone to be practical and to say, we don't have anything yet. I think the communication should be, we are hopeful that throughout this investigation, we are going to uncover more evidence that links Tyler Robinson to this crime. I do feel confident that he was involved in some capacity on that day. As I have said many times on my show, I was the one who broke the story that he was at the Dairy Queen throwing out clothes, a local Dairy Queen, throwing out clothes in a nearby cemetery. And so I do think he was involved, and multiple people were involved that day. And I think he did pick up clothes. I had communication with Lance's family. I had communication with Tyler Robinson's family. And for some reason, Lance is being protected, which I find to be very strange. His own family thinks he's guilty of more, and they find it weird that the feds kind of glossed over him, almost as though he was a Fed operative, like he was working on behalf of them. And we've caught the feds have lied a lot. It's just a fact. Turning Point USA people have lied a lot. That is a fact, which they have agreed to. They said that these were mistakes, but they, whether a mistake or not, the public was lied to. So this obviously, matters deeply to me, and it's just absurd that people would think that I'm doing this for clicks. I know Charlie. I knew Charlie. Charlie and I are very close, and it has been one of the most disgusting things ever that people first and foremost tried to start this psychological operation that Charlie and I hadn't spoken since 2019. They've lied about virtually everything that I've said on my podcast. I'm not going to let this go. Okay. We don't live in a country that is the embodiment of democratic principles. If Charlie Kirk gets publicly executed and the media apparatus is doing everything they can to cover the tracks, I would say to cover the tracks by demanding that there is no further inquiry into what happened on that day. Right, that is not a country that I can get behind.
Let's get to some of the details, because it seems to me you've put up a lot of theories, but a lot of them don't seem to have a clear conclusion from you about what you actually think happened. I mean, you've been all over this now ever since Charlie was killed. What do you believe happened to him? Who do you think killed him?
So I can't tell you definitively who pulled the trigger. I'm not going to lie to audiences and just put something out there that's not real. But what I can say is I feel convinced that the feds were involved. I can tell you that. I think the feds were involved in staging a cover-up. I think Kash Patel knows what happened and did not happen on that day. I am convinced by me being told by people that are feds that he is not acting right and that he is not wanting to share any information. Just a couple of people are allowed to even see anything. A Fed told me that they can't even touch the Charlie Kirk file without risk of being fired, and that he's grown increasingly mad. The U.S. Marshals that were there when they were doing the quote-unquote manhunt for 33 hours said that Kash Patel effectively sent them on a wild goose chase, which is what was signaled to the public when he said, we got him, and it was actually the wrong person. And so it caused people to stop looking because they were convinced that they had the shooter. They felt that that was in order to allow the real perpetrators of the crimes to get away.
Right, but that could just be the fog of the immediacy of these things. We've seen it at Brown University. Exactly the same thing. They thought they had the killer. They thought they had the killer. It turned out to be the wrong person. Right? It doesn't mean there's any great conspiracy by the feds to cover anything up. And again, even if what you're saying is true, I don't know. Maybe you're right. If what you're saying is true, what is it they're covering up? You've so far intimated or inferred something weird involving Egyptian planes. So, well, what's that about? You've inferred perhaps Israeli involvement in some way. You've certainly inferred a lot of Turning Point USA involvement. That's a lot of people getting involved here in the murder of Charlie Kirk, potentially. But what I'm really curious about is, given you've been all over all this and you've been airing all these theories, well, which one is it? It can't be all of these things. Is it somebody?
Well, of course,
is it someone at Turning Point USA? I mean, who do you actually believe was behind this?
Of course, it can be all of those things. And what's really ironic here is that there's a clip of Charlie in the last months leading up to his death where he speaks about the JFK assassination. And he says that multiple countries were involved, multiple people were involved, the LBJ was involved, the feds were involved. And he's correct. That is what it means. When there is a conspiracy, there are multiple people that are involved. Of course, there's not one person on a grassy knoll who shot JFK.
Well, it might have been that.
There are people who had to agree to it. There had people who would have had to. The Dallas police were involved.
Candace,
I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question.
But my point
is, why aren't you just going to point to one person? That to me, even that seems like a part of telling people not to believe their own gut. Obviously, for this to have been pulled off, there had to have been multiple people involved. There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen. Now, who knows what their motivations are? Doesn't mean maybe this person's like, hey, I'm going to help you.
Hang on. Okay, let me stop you. Hang on. When you say obviously somebody at Turning Point, you are accusing right now people that worked with Charlie Kirk at the company he built, which is now run by his widow. You are directly accusing people in that company of being complicit in his murder, right?
I want to just be very clear connecting that dot. So I said that when there is a conspiracy, of course, there are going to be multiple people involved. So applying that same logic to JFK, right? Knowing, as I do and as Charlie did believe, that LBJ was involved, which then implicates the feds as having been involved, which then implicates the Dallas police station as being involved. I believe Israel was obviously involved, that they were the ones that wanted him dead for saying that what is now AIPAC should have to register under FARA. So there's motive. There are people that have to be involved on the ground that day. There are people that have to be willing to allow the perpetrators to get away. There has to be media that's complicit, and that's what literally Operation Mockingbird was. It was established to persuade the public.
Candace, here's the problem.
Well, hang on. It was established. So
but here's the problem with everything you're saying.
In this massive cover-up.
You keep saying, and this is where people think you're prone to endless conspiracy theories for whatever reason.
Okay.
Is you keep using the phrase they have to have been involved. So by that yardstick, what you're saying is with JFK's assassination, and we recently had a lot of the files released, which did not conclusively prove any of these things, right? Now, again, I don't know what happened to JFK, but the one possibility you've not ruled in is it was just as simple as Lee Harvey Oswald. It might have been. We don't know. Right, so when you say the media has to have been involved, Lyndon Johnson has to have been. But my problem is you're stating all these things as facts.
We can't do 63. It's such a nonsense to say that it was Lee Harvey Oswald acting.
You don't know that.
That's just such a nonsense. I do know it was not Lee Harvey Oswald acting by himself, and then that required national security to lock down the files, and that required the feds to impart, the CIA to impart Operation Mockingbird to convince the public that you can't go against. There's a grieving widow. Don't look further into it. Don't believe your own eyes.
But let me just say, this is your Candace.
It was a grand conspiracy that killed JFK. I am going to say that confidently. And I just think we have to grow up. We have to grow up. We can't keep pretending Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK.
Fine.
We can't keep doing that.